If you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description and you'll find items such as this, a soy story. Alright, let's talk about Game of Thrones. And I also want to talk about He-Man a little bit. This is pretty interesting. They're bringing this show back, in case you didn't know. So a couple people already covered. I just want to talk about it. So George R. R. Martin declares HBO's Game of Thrones ending will not affect the books. Now, this sounds like a pretty straightforward article, but there's a couple of things that he says in here that I think are really interesting. Now, I think it's pretty fair to say that most people were pretty dissatisfied with the last season of Game of Thrones. It's terrible. It really exposed the showrunners, the people that write it and direct it. I think the guys that write and direct, I think they're the same. I'm not 100% sure. But they supposedly were going to do a whole trilogy for Disney on Star Wars. That seems to be not so secure anymore. I think the way this series ended really exposed them for the hacks they are. Because as soon as they ran out of source material, as soon as they ran out of books, they didn't know what they were doing anymore. The last two seasons of Game of Thrones really showed how bad that they put things together. And I think that deal got announced like last year. So it got announced before that final season came out. And then that season came out and everybody was disappointed. George R. R. Martin takes some responsibility here because he didn't finish his books. He's been working on Winds of Winter the entire run of that show. All right, 8 years. Actually, 9 years, because we took a year off between season 7 and season 8. There was a year off between those two seasons. And no book. Let's not forget the fact that it had been a couple of years, I think, even before, in between the last book and Winds of Winter, and still no book. I don't know what he's been doing. He's got plenty of time to go around writing little supplemental books and doing scripts and directing the show or whatever. He was writing scripts for the show, and he's got all these little side books. You know, you can't miss them because half the title says George R. R. Martin on the cover, and then the title of the book's like down there at the little bottom. But anyway, seems that he's disappointed as well. Says in this interview here that the show did nothing for the books. I don't know why they would, considering most people have already read them by now. You know, you're not going to get a massive influx of people to go read the books after watching the show. Usually, it's the books will get people excited for the show, and then you'll bring in a whole new audience. I think there's a finite amount of people you can reach with books now, because a lot of people just don't read anymore. It's kind of sad, really, you know, but it is what it is. So anyway, going into this interview that he did with The Guardian, he's asked if his book series is going to be affected from the show's ending. And he says, no, it's not. It doesn't change at all. As Rick Nelson says in Garden Party, one of my favorite songs, you can't please everybody, so you've got to please yourself. He did add that the show's ending is similar to the ending in the books. Martin stated, they're not the same thing, although they're very closely related to each other. And he does confirm, though he's confirmed something like this before, so I don't know how much I believe it, that the book will be out summer 2020. That'd be amazing if we could finally get that book. We've been waiting a long time. And then what is it going to be? 20 years till he finishes the series? Can't wait to see how long it's going to take for him to get that last book out. But he went on to discuss how the show affected his writing, noting it increased his stress as he attempted to try and stay ahead of the show, which you could see he obviously gave up on, right? I find it funny, though, that he had plenty of time to write at least like 5 or 6 supplemental books. I got them. There's at least 3 of them. He collaborated with some people on them. It's funny that he had time to make those books, but no time to, finish the main one that people want. Now, maybe he had writer block. I don't know. Now, I think the stress didn't help him, right? But he added, there were a couple of years where I could have finished the book. I could have stayed ahead of the show for a couple of years, and the stress was enormous. Now, here's the kicker. He added, I don't think it was very good for me. Speaking of the show, is what he's talking about here. The show, not the books. So he's saying, I didn't think that it was good for me. He's talking about the show. Because the very thing that should have speeded me up actually slowed me down. Every day I sat down to write, and even if I had a good day, and a good day for me is 3 or 4 pages, I'd feel terrible because I'd be thinking, my God, I have to finish the book. I've only written 4 pages when I should have written 40. But having the show finish is freeing because I'm at my own pace now. I have good days and I have bad days, and the stress is far less. Although it's still there, I'm sure that when I finish A Dream of Spring, you'll have to tether me to the earth. Talking about the weight off his shoulders, basically. And I'm sure he's feeling it because the books have been on such a dry spell. So it sounds to me like he does regret making the show. I think the show definitely did put an enormous amount of stress on him and stopped the books from getting made, which is a shame. He really should have waited till he finished the books to let a show be made. At the end of the day, I think that would have been the better decision. But we can't change the clock now. We can't turn the clock back, right? And it's definitely, I think, the brand of Game of Thrones, well, actually, Ice and Fire, has been damaged from the ending of that show because the show was so good. And then as soon as they ran out of material, he exposed the creators of the show because they turn out to be hacks. Anybody that watched that final 2 seasons of that show knows that they had no idea what they were doing. They had an outline. They couldn't do anything with it. And he should regret the show. He should apologize for it. Because honestly, I mean, we could have had something better. We should have had the series everyone deserved and waited. He should have waited till he finished the books. But it is what it is. We can't change now. Hopefully the books are really good. All right, so some news here, and I think this is pretty cool. Kevin Smith, the showrun Netflix Masters of the Universe Revelation series, which is interesting. So they're bringing it back. This is going to be a direct sequel to the show that aired first 1983, ended 1985. It's pretty old. Okay, and they've tried to reboot it, I think, once or twice. And I don't think the reboots did very well. So they're like, let's just bring the old one back. Now, the interesting thing here is that it's a direct sequel. So I guess the question is, 1985, wouldn't most of the kids who grew up with that be like late 40s, early 40s, 50s? You know, I wonder, will they come out to support this? How are you going to get new fans if they need to watch the old series? I mean, that's some old animation. But it seems like they're going to keep the style. I think this is pretty neat. Now, the thing I think is going on here, I think the reason this is happening is because of the backlash to She-Ra. I think She-Ra had such bad backlash among a lot of people because she looks like a little boy that they're like, all right, let's just go ahead and bring this back. Let's see if people show up, right? Let's see if people show up and support this. I think that's what's going on here. They want to see, will you come out and support this? So I think you should. You know, it would be nice if we could get people to come out and make this a big thing. And then maybe, just maybe, they'll stop screwing with everybody's favorite old shows and properties. But director Kevin Smith took center stage at PowerCon to announce that he will showrun a brand new Netflix animated series titled Masters of the Universe Revelation. This comes from Twitter user PixelDan. At Kevin Smith just announced at the PowerCon a new animated series coming to Netflix, Masters of the Universe. Kevin Smith is the showrunner. Series is said to pick up from the original cartoon. He notes that Smith will be working with Powerhouse, the company behind Netflix's Castlevania series, which is pretty cool. That series is actually pretty good. If you've not seen the Castlevania animated series on Netflix, I think you're missing something good. That's actually a pretty decent show. So you got a good team behind it. And they say here the description reads, a radical return to Eternia. Revelation is a direct series sequel to the classic era of Masters of the Universe, featuring fan favorites He-Man, Orko, Cringer, and Man of Arms. The story pits our heroic warriors and guardians of Castle Grayskull against Skeletor, Evil Lyn, Beastman, and the vile legions of Snake Mountain. But after a ferocious final battle, forever fractures Eternia, it's up to whatever her name is, Tila, to solve the mystery of the missing Sword of Power in a race against time to prevent the end of the universe. Her journey will uncover the secrets of Grayskull at last. This is the epic He-Man and the Masters of the Universe saga fans have waited 35 years to see. And it says he got a shout out. So this is really interesting. This is really interesting, and it's kind of calling people out. People have been wanting stuff like this. You got to support it. So will there be support for this? Will this do well? I guess only time will tell, but I'd like to know if you're excited about it. If you were around for this, are you going to watch it? Do you know anybody that was around for this? Or are you interested enough that you'll watch it even if you have no ties to the original series? Let me know. Anyway, that's all I got. Like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Make sure you're still subscribed. That's really important nowadays, as every day people are getting unsubscribed. Good times on YouTube. Check out the link in my description. Got a link to my Twitch, trying to build that up. Almost to 1,000 followers. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.